Young men who are growing up in Chicago right now, what would your message be to them?
Knowledge of self, of patience, of peace. Coming to understand that to be powerful, to be strong, doesn't mean to be impulsive and constantly defensive.
So family, we are here in Ghana. We are at the Bel Air Crest in Cantonments, and I am here today with Vic Mensa. Just a little bit about my guest. He is an activist, an artist, and an all-round, I say one of the cool guys. You're definitely one of the cool guys.
Oh, thank you, man.
And I would say that he's not an influencer, he's influential, which for me is a bigger deal for sure. And the reason why we are here in Ghana is because we are about to do the Black Star Line conference, and Vic is about to do the Black Star Line concert. We are here in what is called now Dirty December, but as far as I can see, there's more partying than there is organization. So Vic has come here to be part of that organization and activation. And yeah, I just want to introduce my guest, Vic Mensa.
Appreciate you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So let me just jump right into it. Chicago. What was it like for you growing up in Chicago? Because you're very vocal about Chicago and how you feel you need to connect Chicago to, and children from Chicago to Ghana, as you are Ghanaian, and then your mother is European American. How, for you, was it growing up in Chicago? Because from what I've seen, I've never been to Chicago, but from what I've seen, Chicago looks like a war zone, bro.
Yeah. Chicago is a complex place of many contradictions. You know what I'm saying? Chicago is at once the home of the blues and the center of the great migration of Black Americans through the United States. The birthplace of Nation of Islam. And in the same breath, the home of gangbanging.
Right.
And a home to a very specifically insidious and intense form of violence. The violent culture is deeply embedded in the psyche in Chicago. Growing up in Chicago is to experience this immense duality between culture, history, and heritage, and toxic, poisoned violence. And I think that's also very representative of the Black American experience. You know, Black American people are responsible for perhaps the most ubiquitous form of communication on the planet right now, which is hip hop, and just Black culture as a whole, as an entirety. And at the same time, we're embedded with so much blood trauma and so much like history of violence and force used against us that it is represented in, you know, almost everything we do, you know?
School, what was that like for you? When you were a young man going to school, were you enthusiastic about school? Did you think to yourself, well, you know what, school ain't shit? Or did you think to yourself, hey, I'm gonna get my grades? And what was your idea of school? What did it mean to you?
You know, school was actually my father's great equalizer. Coming from the eastern region of Ghana, in a town called Koforidua, in what is called Zongo, which are, West African slums. And there's often not access to running water and lights in the home, etc. Things that just are hard to fathom for Americans.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And him being very smart and receiving scholarships to go to school in America is
a big deal.
That's what made me possible. You know, I mean, my mother actually met him in Nigeria, but he probably wouldn't have been in Nigeria teaching if he hadn't gone to America to go to university. And so school was always an imperative. It was not optional, you know. And performing well in school was not optional. You know what I'm saying? My pops would go in other people's book bags. When my homies would come to my house, he'd go in their book bags and look at their report cards.
Check how they do
and be like, he'd be like, C and D? Oh, no. He'll give you an hour lecture about it. You know what I'm saying? So I always did well in school. But at the same time, I always had a lot of disciplinary infractions. You know what I'm saying? Because school in America is really a pipeline to prison and is oftentimes much more focused on domination, especially of black boys and girls, than education. You know what I'm saying? It's about conditioning you to join the workforce. I mean, there have been so many revelations by the people that created the modern day school system that they want you to sit in desks in this way to mimic a factory setting. You know what I'm saying? And obviously they want you to have a pizza party on Christopher Columbus's birthday, so that you grow to have positive mental connections with Christopher Columbus and with your own destruction and colonialism by proxy. And so that was never lost on me, you know what I'm saying? Especially having the perspective as a first generation African immigrant in America. The idea that black history begins with a slave ship just
wasn't your idea.
It infuriated me all through school, and I think even starting before any of those things, the disregard, disrespect, and just like oppressive nature of being black in school, it soured the whole thing for me. You know, when I was in kindergarten, I wasn't the best at sharing, you know, like a lot of kids, you know what I'm saying? And I could be a little bit of a bully and, you know, shit like that. And, you know, my white teacher, Miss Clement, she didn't know how to deal with it. And so she put me in the special needs class. And so I'm with all the kids that are in wheelchairs and, you know, are drooling and, you know, can't speak properly. And, you know, I didn't fully have the, you know, information to all the way understand it, but I knew I was being devalued. Not to speak about, not to be like ableist, you know what I'm saying?
But you were being discriminated
I knew that I was being discriminated against. I was like, this is not where I belong, you know what I'm saying? And it's like that in so many situations of black education.
I was in the UK and I had the same thing.
Really?
Like I got put in what was called isolation, where because I was too intelligent for the class, so I'd finish on my work first, and then I would just, you know, I'd be joking,
talking, joke. That's what I would do.
You know, same. And then they put you in like it basically looks like a voting booth, and it's just like there's wood here, there's a desk, you got your books, that's it.
Prison.
And there's a teacher behind you, and it feels like that teacher's an overseer, and the teacher's just watching you, and you have to sit there from 8 a.m. You have to get to school before everybody else. You leave school after everybody else. You have to sit there from 8 a.m. till like 4 p.m. like that. And the best thing about the whole day is lunch break. And I was just like, shit's like prison.
Yeah.
Like this is like prison. Like and that is interesting that you had that experience in Chicago.
Yeah.
I had that experience in the UK, and I've heard that so many times. Like it's not like it's an alien thing. So that's clearly a psychological warfare that is being pushed onto you. So not at the beginning, I don't mean to diss Chicago and stuff, but for the rest of the world, the rest of the world knows Chicago as that currently, obviously, you know, you got the Panthers, you got the Blues, you got all the things going on in there. But for young men and women growing up in Chicago,
Yeah, they think Chicago, they're like,
yeah,
you dodging bullets the moment you get off the
right,
airplane.
right, the whole time. But I mean, how are the guns getting into the hoods there? Like, why? When did that start? Because Chicago wasn't always like that.
Chicago's been like that. I mean, Al Capone was Chicago. They even called the certain rifle with like the large drum on it back in the day the Chicago typewriter. But in the modern form, it's an intentional system of destruction of the community. I mean, the problem with American laws in the first place is that you can't consider something to be a law if all I have to do is go 100 miles to the west, cross state lines, and it's no longer a law. So if guns are illegal in Chicago, but the neighboring states of Indiana, Wisconsin, and Michigan, guns are legal in all of those places, and you can go buy them legally without documentation through loopholes like gun shows where you can just, like a car show, go and buy a gun from somebody personally.
Right.
All you have to do is leave a city. And you know, it might take you 20 minutes, 30 minutes to leave a city and get a gun. Also, a lot of guns are coming in through freight trains that mysteriously go through the hood and go missing.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, police are selling guns.
Right.
Everybody's in on it, you know what I'm saying? And on a base level, it's like gun control cannot exist. It cannot be considered to be a reality if all I have to do is drive 30 minutes and the laws change.
Right.
You know? And so guns are coming from Tennessee, they're coming from Indiana, they're coming from Wisconsin, they're coming from the South in general, and they're ever present. It's like getting a gun is so simple, you know, to the point where, man, I feel like my relationship with guns has been, it's been interesting because when I was a kid, you know, I came into the rap space like when I was a teenager, and I came in as a positive rapper, you know what I'm saying? And I was always intelligent in my music with like information from the books I read and my world perspective, and it was reality, but it was never tough guy, like, you know what I mean, I'm a gangster, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so my mentality on guns was always that, why would I need to carry a gun? People know, you know, my message, you know what I'm saying? And then I came into fame and money, and now I'm, you know, 20 years old or something, and I'm the only nigga I know with a Beamer, you know what I'm saying? And people are checking me out at the gas station, and you know, pretty quickly I had that gun on me.
Protect yourself.
You know, it didn't take long before I had that gun on me, and it was like kind of like a, what do you call that, snowball effect, where now I got the gun on me, and I have eyes on me, and the gun is almost like a magnet for more drama and trouble, you know, and coming into success and money is a magnet for more drama and trouble. So now I'm finding myself being set up and robbed and scammed by some of the people I love the most, you know, and in response to that, now I find myself kicking in people's doors and, you know, doing a whole bunch of gangster shit, you know what I'm saying? Because I'm so hurt, you know, that like somebody I love would do this to me. And so now I've done this gangster shit and I can't take it back, you know what I mean? So it's like now I have to have the gun. Next thing you know, I'm getting pulled over, police find the gun, I'm in jail for guns. You know, it's like, it's that simple, snowball you know, effect. To where I have, you know, ended up having multiple gun charges. And like never being someone that had a desire to kill. You know, it's like, I feel like our society and our cultures are so poisoned and skewed that we're looking at this machine that is like purely for murder.
Right,
you know what I'm saying? A handgun, like, this is not for hunting.
Right.
You know what I mean? For sustenance.
Right.
Food. This is for
Anything.
murder of human beings.
Right.
You know, and we're treating it, you know, like a pair of sunglasses. It's
Right,
like,
right.
man, I'm gonna bring this one with me today because
Right,
it kind of
right.
goes with my pants. You know, fits in my jacket.
Right.
It's sick, man. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I'm honestly, I'm not. I would be fully into gun control if everybody didn't have them.
Right.
You know.
For young men who are growing up in Chicago right now, what would your message be to them, especially for people who are not African immigrants? Because the thing is, I think that people who are African immigrants, though they might fall into, like, you know, the local culture or whatever, they're still gonna have that African parent who's like, yo, you need to get your grades sorted out, right? Whereas, I'm not saying that African Americans don't do that, but I'm saying that there is still a connection to Africa, and it's like, this is not all that you know. But for African American kids, it's like, you know, they want to rep their block and all of that type of stuff. What would your message be to them, and also what would your message be to yourself at 15?
I think that my message to young men in Chicago, African American or children of immigrants, all alike, would be one of discipline, of knowledge of self, of patience, of peace. Coming to understand that to be powerful, to be strong, doesn't mean to be impulsive and constantly defensive. I mean, I think that those things actually are antithetical to each other. It's like real strength of a martial artist. Like, I'm a martial artist since age 5. And strength is in being able to think clearly when you're angered. Is in being able to be like water when the pressure's high, you know? In our youth and in our culture as a whole, there are so many notions that masculinity is tied in to violence. You know, that you have to be violent to be a man. And although I believe in being able to have a capacity for violence, I believe much more in being able to control yourself and, you know, only use it if absolutely necessary. We live in a violent world. America is a very violent place. You live in a violent place. I don't think that it resonates with me to be a man that has no capacity for violence. But I also know that, in all honesty, having self-control and being able to circumvent that violence and choose peace is just a much more beneficial way of life. You know what I mean? Since I've fallen back on a lot of the violent shit that I would get caught up in, I just see a lot more blessings in my life. You know what I mean? I see that I'm able to materialize the things that I want and need just by being in commune with God and with myself and having faith, you know, whatever you believe in, you know what I mean? Because I believe in the ancestors, I believe in God, I believe in Allah, I believe in Muhammad, you know what I mean? I believe in all those things. And if I could give an anecdote, there was a point in time a couple years ago when I was in need of, you know, some cash for something. And you know, the best way I could think of to get it was to go back to trapping. You know what I mean? I grew up trapping. That's what I did before I ever rapped. And so I'm dealing with some people I grew up with that have grown in different directions than me, just morally and in their values and their lifestyles, and selling things. And, you know, long story short, somebody ran off on me with the money that was even more than what I put in, which was the money that I needed, you know what I mean, what I was trying to make. They ran off with that $15,000 or something. And so now I'm on a vendetta once again. You know, I find this nigga, I beat his ass in front of everybody. Next thing I know, this kid I grew up with, now he's trying to kill me. And he's doing this, talking to these guys, trying to get them to come kill me or something like that. And ultimately, the ensuing drama and distraction just took me so far off my path, you know, that I was like, you know, too paranoid. People know where my studio's at. I'm out of the money that I needed. Whereas in contrast, since I decided to just kind of let all those things go, you know, it was ill. It was a moment, man, a year and some change ago, a year and a half ago, about when all that was going on, the money was messed up. I went to the mosque for the first time, and the imam, he was having a khutbah where he was like, man, you know, there's two types of people in this world. There's people that are on their deen, they got their things together, you know, their relationships are in order, their relationship with themselves is in order, their relationship with God is in order, and there's people that are struggling. They're struggling in the streets, they're struggling with violence, they're struggling financially, emotionally, with depression. And, you know, I just started crying, man, because I was just going through all that. And I was like, look, I was like, God, man, if you can get me through this, you know, I'm going to rock with you, because I know it's only God that could get me through, you know, this moment. And not even just that moment, but in a larger context, the things I've been going through in recent years. And, you know, about a week later, I was doing an after party for this Kanye concert. So I worked on that album, on Donda. And the night started off, somebody gave me some Molly, you know? So it was already in that direction, you know? And by the time I had my party, I do some dumb shit. My girl gets mad, storms off. I try to, you know, kind of chase her, go back to her house to apologize. I'm drunk driving, man. Total the Range Rover, you know? Got a dirty pistol in the back seat. I'm so drunk, I'm like, I don't know what's going on. I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh, this is a prison moment. I'm like, this that dumbass shit. This that dumbass moment when I go to prison next. You know? And I got so fucking blessed because my homegirl was able to come in time. You know, I had insurance, got the gun out of there, and man, I haven't drank, smoked, did drugs. I stopped because I was like, this is what I was asking. That's what I was asking God for. You know, let me heed this sign. And since I've just, you know, revolutionized the way that I think, the way that I act, the way that I consume, the way that I meditate, that same, you know, little money that I was doing all this to try to get,
it's come back tenfold.
Yeah, I could just put it in the sky. You know what I mean? I'll just be like, thank God, the universe, that this is going to come to me. And then it just comes to me in some random, unexpected way, you know? But it's like my energy has to be aligned with universal consciousness. And I feel like when I'm doing those things, I'm
off balance.
I'm off balance.
Right. So, I mean, segue into what I was going to ask you anyway. What do you believe spirituality is?
Spirituality in my life is an acknowledgement that you and I and Solange and everyone on this planet, including everything on this planet, are intrinsically connected in a grand framework of existence. Spirituality is the recognition of universal consciousness. And I have recently started practicing Islam. I can't say I'm a Muslim. I haven't done the Shahada, but I've been, practicing prayers and observing the deen and things like that. But prior to that and beyond anything, I consider myself a spiritual person. I consider myself in community with my ancestors. I come from Vodun on my grandfather's side. I acknowledge.
Shout out to Haiti.
Shout out to Haiti, for real. And for those that don't know, so Vodun, West African Vodun, is the original voodoo that was transported through the Middle Passage to places like Haiti and Louisiana to become voodoo and hoodoo as we know it. And that's in my blood, and far before I would consider myself any type of religious person, I would consider myself to be a spiritual person. I've always actually been very wary of monotheistic religion and was really anti for most of my life, to the point where I get into fights because I piss off my friends on Christmas. I tell them, man, you got Jesus Christ with slavery, right? That was a package deal.
Right. And he white in all the pictures.
Yeah, they'd be so mad, But it's like in more recent times, I feel like I've come to just like have a deep reverence as well for Christianity, though, from reading the Bible myself, and applying the anecdotes of the Bible to my real life and not taking it so literally. As a child, it was really the whole white Jesus thing that turned me off for the whole time.
Right.
But also like the fantastical things that would happen in the stories and shit. I was like, you believe this verbatim?
Right. He split the ocean. Okay.
But as I start to study it myself and apply it, there's a book I read that really kicked it to me in a good way, and it was like, when you read in the Bible and it says, vengeance is mine, says the Lord. This book is all about spiritual law. And she said, think of the word Lord as the word law. And to regard God as being, a benevolent source of life. I don't like the idea of this vengeful, angry God.
Right. Why are you scared of God? If God is in you.
Because I don't want to feel fear.
Right.
But when I started to think about it as, the law, it's like, spiritual law will exact vengeance. What you reap, you will sow. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, as a whole, man, I consider myself to be extremely spiritual. I try to be as spiritual as possible in everything I do, in my music, in this conversation, in this conference tomorrow, in this festival on Friday. I mean, I have to be in just gratitude to God, the universe, the ancestors for everything, so that I can take it out of my hands,
Right. So, what's Save Money about?
Save Money started in high school, and it's just a group of us, man. Me, Chance, and Reese, a bunch of the guys that's in Ghana right now. Joey, all my guys, really, a bunch of them are here. And I think in its genesis, it was just kind of like an antithesis to the traditional materialistic hip hop culture. And it was about stealing.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of stealing, man, as a kid, which is another thing that I've had an interesting relationship with, because I grew up stealing so much, just being like a street kid and being a graffiti writer. Stealing is an integral part of graffiti culture. It's called racking. It's how you get your paint, your markers. It's like, are you gonna go buy that to go deface
something,
public property?
With a receipt.
It doesn't all the way make sense.
Yeah.
So even once I had money, I still would be like having stealing in my behavior. Like, I might just see this and be like, man, the line is too long, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just like, because I didn't feel morally that, something's wrong with stealing from 7-Eleven.
Right.
A corporation.
I mean, all corporations do is steal.
That's what I'm saying. So, and I'm not knocking anybody that is still stealing, but I had to realize for myself that every action that I take, you know, every word that I speak, every thought that I allow to grow wings has to be intentional. So in the act of stealing, although I may not feel that there is moral obligation to Walmart, something in the back of my mind is still knowing I'm doing something wrong.
Right.
And I'm trying to get something for nothing.
Right.
You know? So when I stopped smoking, drinking, and I just like acknowledged God in that moment with that car crash, I stopped all that shit too. I stopped stealing little things. I stopped judging people in my mind as much as I could. You know, even if I see a woman and, you know, she's bad as hell, I stopped thinking in my mind, oh yeah, I want to fuck that bitch. I try to tell myself God bless that woman. Right. You know what I'm saying?
That's a human being.
That's a human being. Like, what was I reading recently? It might be The Spontaneous Fulfillment of Desire, the Deepak Chopra. And I like this idea where he was saying, try in your day, every person that you meet, thinking upon eye contact, namaste, to them, you know, which I think in Sanskrit is something like, you know, I recognize the divinity or the consciousness of this person.
It's the same as Ubuntu. It's like,
Ubuntu.
I see you, you know? I am because we are, you are because I am.
Exactly, exactly. And honestly, changing my behaviors in those ways has been radical for me. You know, it's been revolutionary for me because it gives me an opportunity to be spiritual in every encounter, you know, even if it's a silent encounter. Because coming from Chicago, man, it's like we have a poisoned mindset that is murderous towards the black man.
Right. If someone's looking at you, then they're looking at you.
me.
Yeah, why are you looking at me?
My mind frame is, I'll kill this nigga.
Right.
You know?
You start reaching.
And in recent years, it's like I've come to realize, this doesn't make sense.
Right.
All I did was pull up to my house, and I see this guy standing outside, another black man. I don't know him. And immediately my mind is telling me, I kill this nigga. You know? I'm like that's not my voice.
Right.
Speaking.
Right.
That's not my voice that created that thought, that idea. And it's gonna take a lot of very intentional spiritual consciousness for me to rearrange that. So now I have to be very clear about when I see somebody I don't know, even in a situation where I might feel typically anxious, I gotta be like, God bless that brother. Right. You know what I mean? God bless that brother. Right. I can't allow myself to be living out colonizers' fantasies.
Right, of course. But if you try me, I'll fuck you up.
For sure.
But God bless you for now.
I'm training every day, you know what I mean? I've been training my martial arts more than, you know, probably more than ever in the past 2 years, and branching into MMA and a lot more boxing. And I'm definitely nicer with my hands and feet than I ever been, but I am way less excited to use it. I don't want to. I would rather like.
Have you competed yet? Like had a fight like in the ring?
No, I haven't.
Bro,
I need to.
You got to do that.
I got to.
There's nothing greater, I believe, there's nothing greater for a man's physical purpose than to engage in consensual combat with an equal. Is like that in terms of confidence building, and that's why a lot of people, you know, are reaching for guns or reaching for knives, is because they're scared of losing the fight. And the thing is like, in order to be able to be a warrior, you can't be scared of losing. You have to be able to be ready to fight at an equal level, because if somebody gets the better of you, they're the better man in that time, but they're not the greatest spirit, right? And when you jump in a boxing ring, because I used to fight when I was in the military.
That's right.
And I still fight now. I'm going to Thailand soon. I'm going to fight again. And jumping in the ring when you've done the training with somebody who you know has also done the training at the same weight, at the same skill level, is like it's interesting because you now have like this high level of confidence because everything's fair. Like everything is aligned and in balance spiritually when you are fighting somebody else and it's equal. Whereas, you know, if you sucker punch someone, it's not equal. Like it's not like that karma is gonna come back to you in a different way. Whereas if you win in that setting, the confidence, because I've never lost, right? If you win in that setting, the confidence level that comes back to you is just like, I can beat someone at their top level, at my top level. And then like when you've done that, I don't know, you just walk tall. And especially if you do like, you say you're throwing more hands now and you're better with your hands than ever, but especially if you train for 3 months and then put it in a fight and then you win or you lose, but you put that 3 months in, you walk around different. You walk around like you standing on the shoulders of 50 ancestors and you walk like you're 10 feet tall because you like, if anything happens at any point, you can handle business. And it's not you just can handle business like you're an athlete. So I think for all men watching this, try to do a martial art and then compete, because once you compete, it gives you this, I can't explain it. It's like this next level of like, oh yeah, I'm a warrior. Like not just, you know, I might fuck somebody up. It's like, no, it's honor. And it's like a different level of amazingness.
You've been competing in boxing?
Yeah. I put on some fights a few years ago to refurbish a hospital in Kinshasa. So I kind of just went out there and...
Where's Kinshasa?
Congo, it's the capital of Congo. I kind of just went out there and I was just like, where is the richest country in the world? So I Google, it's Congo. Where is the poorest country in the world? And I Google, it's Congo. So I'm like, wait, how is the richest country in the world the poorest country in the world? All right, let me try and figure out how I can be involved in like doing something useful for my people. And I was like, well, how can I do it? You know, I'm not, you know, a rapper. I'm not a football player. I'm not, you know, I wasn't at the time an entrepreneur, but I can beat someone up. So I was like, let me put on a fight, and people will come and watch, and they will donate their money. Instead of buying tickets, they bought tickets, but they will donate their money. And then I took the money into the heart of a slum in Kinshasa and refurbished this medical center where they didn't even have a door on the front of the medical center. Like babies were being born, they were getting malaria, they were dying, it was mad. So we completely refurbished it, took all the money and just went rogue and just went off and said, hey, I'm gonna go and do something. And at the time, I didn't even have an organization. I was just like, let me go and do it. But when I did it, I was walking on the shoulders of my ancestors, and I felt like I was walking with the spirit because I'd met some children when I went there, and the children were super cool, and they were orphan children. And I was like, how do I help these children? I was like, let me refurbish this so that they can get free treatment. And there was no roadmap for that. You know, I never had an NGO, I never had any. I was just like, let me beat somebody up, show them that I beat somebody up, and then when that's done, and personally, I don't fight anybody who is black. I only fight Europeans or anybody else, because I ain't like one thing that Muhammad Ali said years ago. He's like, he was getting into it on an interview show with a brother, and he just said to the brother like this is one of the most impressive things I ever saw him say. He's like, hey brother, and the brother was looking at me. He's like, I don't fight with brothers on TV. Like, I don't mess with, I ain't doing that, right? And the guy was just like, oh, okay. And the explanation of that is just like, the image of us fighting each other is already bad enough. So I ain't gonna go and try and do that. But yeah, anytime you wanna come with me to go Thailand or come into any of the boxing camps. I was talking to
your homegirl about the, so are you in Thailand doing Muay Thai?
Yeah.
Right, but you're not gonna be fighting in Muay Thai.
I don't need an elbow in my face at this age. I need my brain working. But you can chain boxing as well. So they've got all the boxing in the same breath. So you can do Muay Thai sparring, boxing sparring, but you'll do enough so that you'll get to a level.
You've inspired me. I'm going to compete, you know what I mean? Because I am a lifelong martial artist, and I used to compete as a kid, you know? I would go to the tournaments, and it's a vague memory now though, because that's when I was like 10 years old.
Right,
I remember getting kicked in the head, hitting the ground, and still coming up to win the fight. You know what I mean? And I think probably in my life, that
It's like a metaphor
lifelong
for your
experience
life.
did give me a lot of confidence though, because being a martial artist since age 5, I kind of always moved with an idea of like, I can always defend myself, you know what I mean? And take it further than that in most situations. But now since I've been training and like really locking in on technical skill of boxing and the technique of mixed martial arts, from Wing Chun to, you know, the Taekwondo and kickboxing and everything in between, and Muay Thai, I'm like, man, it's time for me to compete again.
Yeah, no, you must.
Because I got it right now. When I first started, you know, and obviously I still have a lot of, I got a lot of development to do, but I'm like, I look good though. You know what I'm saying? Like after a few years of like consistency, I feel like I could do it now. And I would I probably would like to compete in boxing, because although I want to kick a motherfucker in the head, I don't even want to
you don't want to get kicked in the head. Boy.
I don't even want to deal with that. It's fucked up because, you know, growing up, I had that. So it was like, you know, the way that my sensei talks about it is like, you've got 9 limbs. You know what I mean? You got extra weapons. And it's 9, right? It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You know what I mean? He's like, you got 9 limbs. That's extra weapons. Nobody should be able to beat you with 2. You know what I'm saying? And I think that was kind of always my mentality growing up, because it was like, he might be 6'3", you know, but when I snap kicked him in his head, it was like I had something he didn't have, you know? But if I gotta go fight somebody in mixed martial arts and we all got 9 limbs,
I don't know about that.
Boxing sounds like a little bit of a better plan.
Yeah, I think like, we ain't getting no younger. And you need to be able to think and speak.
Stuff is not something that
you don't
interests me. But like you said though, like the peak of like physicality and just like humanity, like a consensual combat with a trained person.
Right.
That's nice.
It's
you know what I'm
nice.
saying?
It feels nice.
That's what I seek. You know what I mean?
So to go back to what you were saying before about you worked on Donda, which for a lot of people is an interesting project with interesting people. How do you feel like creatively you contributed to that, and then also what was the overall kind of messaging from Chicago to the world in that?
I love that album, man. You know, I came in really in the later moments, like right around the Atlanta listening party, the second one. And I was in there writing, you know what I mean? So creatively, I contributed different lyrics on different songs. Worked on some production and things like that. But I think overall, man, you know, that album is it's a very spiritual one that is representative of a complex, flawed man, you know, that is a genius and a world changer, and is also, like many of us, oftentimes his own worst enemy.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I know we're in a moment when a lot has happened and a lot has been said. But at the end of the day, Kanye is a friend to me, and somebody that has taught me many things in conversation like you and I are speaking, and also just through his music when I was fucking 11 years old, you know, far before I knew him. And, you know, I think that the experience of being an African on this planet, living inside of white supremacist colonial structures, is testing you mentally constantly. Add in extreme amounts of fame, you know, unquantifiable amounts of money. You know, it's times I've been with Kanye and like we're being a designer store about the, you know, the size of this back part with Kim and a security guard. That'd be about it. And outside the glass, hundreds of people in the street on Soho or in Soho, New York, just like, ooh, ooh, ah, ah, ah. It's like, look at the monkeys, you know what I mean? Like beating on the thing. It's like it's hard to, you know, you can't even imagine how that takes a toll on somebody's mind. You know what I mean? Not to mention, you exist in this like extremely exploitative system that is the music industry, and you're also at the top of the music industry, so you feel, oh, I shouldn't be the one being being slaved anymore.
I should be
like,
the boss.
You know what I'm saying? But you're looking at the contract, you know, and you know, I say all that to say that that album, I feel like is, you know, it's beautiful, man. It's got a song on there called "Come to Life." It's like it's one of my favorite Ye songs, and it really excited me. You know what I'm saying? And it still does. I listen to it a lot.
So, I mean, just looking at it from a psychological perspective, I suppose, and it's one thing that I would say to Ye. I've only met him once, but there's a book that everybody should read, but especially him, and it's called Black Skin, White Masks.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say that is because it breaks down the psychology of what it means to be black or, you know, otherized next to white supremacy or next to whiteness, and the proximity to whiteness a lot of the time for the black man is there is no validation without whiteness. So it's white money, it's white women, it's, you know, white success, it's being able to be, you know, the black faces in the white places. And I've seen many of his interviews and he's always referencing white people. It's always white CEOs, and he's always like calling on these people. And I think to myself sometimes, well, what would it be like if, you know, he was to be in Africa, or he was to be in Africa and Africa was to have never been colonized? Then the only people that you would have to look to as examples look like you. So there wouldn't be this kind of this referencing of people in jest, or referencing of people to validate yourself who don't look like you. And I think the other thing is the same with the whole Jesus thing. Is like, I'm going to give everything all to God, but it's like, well, what God is that God? Because if it's a God that's viewed through a lens of whiteness, is it your God or is it colonial God? And then for a lot of, one thing I say to all black Christians in North America, I love you guys, you gotta go to Ethiopia. Because if you don't go to Ethiopia, then you ain't gonna understand where the African context of that experience comes from. Like, Orthodox Christianity is way more valid than Protestant, Catholic, or any of the other versions of Christianity, because you've been to Ethiopia, you've been to the churches. It's not like you're gonna go church and then you're gonna go out drinking. Like, these people are like, no, I'm gonna go church and then I'm gonna go to work and I'm gonna live my life with my family and then I'm gonna go back to church. And it's, if you go and like some of the traditional ceremonies, so like for instance, in the month of December right now, because their Christmas is on January 7th, right? In the month of December, everybody's fasting. It's not a thing that's like everybody's eating
Ethiopia, they got fasting macchiato, or like fasting menus at the restaurant. Things that you can consume while fasting. It's like, that was really interesting to me, because I think about that a lot when I'm considering Christianity. and considering Islam, you know, having done my first Ramadan and had some of my first experiences with fasting, I've been like, man, you know, a lot of my Christian friends, although I know fasting exists in Christianity somewhere, much of the Christianity that I see isn't expressed in, yeah, that's a good one. Definitely a good one. This is a classic. I actually haven't read this book, but this is in the same bookstore where I get a lot of my shit.
That book there explained to me how basically Bilal, who is the first one to sing the call to prayer, right, was an Ethiopian that was trafficked to Mecca, right? And a lot of what is the practices in Islam actually are the practices of Orthodox Christianity.
Yeah.
Right? So that whole fasting thing, that Jesus was in the desert for 40 days, 40 nights thing, and when we say they're fasting, they're not eating, they're just eating vegetarian, vegan foods. They don't eat any meat for a month, right? And that's the whole country that basically does that. It's only really the diaspora that break that. Everybody else is just eating vegan food because it makes them feel like they're closer to God, right? And one of the things that I'll say to people who are on a perversion of Christianity or a Eurocentric idea of Christianity is, this book is called The African Origins of the Major Western Religions by Dr. Joseph Ben Yochanan, and it shows you where that originally comes from. So even here where we are right now in West Africa, there's a lot of people who believe in a Christianity that's a colonial Christianity that was brought here and forced on them, rather than a naturally cultured Christianity that was brought here by Ethiopians, East Africans. And it's like, if you're going to believe a white idea of a black religion over a black idea of a black religion, you're already colonized. And indoctrinating your kids into that and telling them, you know, everything to do with African spirituality is, you know, bad or evil, or while you're in the church, like drinking the blood and eating the body of Christ symbolically, doesn't make any sense to me, even though that originally comes from Shango and Budden. But I just, two things I would say, if you're watching this, study the original versions of the religions that you believe in, and then look at where they came from, and then also read Black Skin, White Masks, because that's a great book by Frantz Fanon, because you can't be all black if everybody that you date is all white.
Yeah, Black Skin, White Masks is like been super influential to me in this last year. You know, I curated an art show in Chicago called Skin and Masks that I kind of translated his message of decolonizing the mind into decolonizing art. And something that's difficult for me in that book, but liberating at the same time, is releasing the idea of black and recognizing that black as an identity is inherently to become white, because it wasn't our identity before whiteness. You know, it was an identity that was given to us that is a synthesization of, like, you synthesize and compressing all of these identities that you really have
into one color,
you know.
Which isn't even one color. It's not really black.
It's not actually a color,
like
but
the South Sudanese, you can say they're black, but everybody else, I don't know.
But yeah, you know, when Fanon was saying that, he said that the eventual destiny of the black man is to become the white man. And in his conclusion, he said the only path forward is to let it go, to release ourselves from blackness, to release ourselves from whiteness, and to demand only humanity, you know, from one another as human beings. Now that's fucking difficult, you know, because black people,
that's a whole identity.
That's our whole thing. You know what I mean? Like, that, those of us that are lucky enough to know more of our heritage may have more names on the list, but we've also lived our lives on this planet inside of this category and found self-love in this category, although there's also a lot of self-hate in that category. But black Americans, they can't trace beyond that. You know, they have to, that's all they know.
I was speaking with Burna Boy about this the other day, and it kind of brings me back to I suppose it was an argument or it was a debate that I was having on live one time with a Somali girl, because she was in the UK and she was like, I'm black, and I'm like, you're not. But I didn't mean it to be like to erase her her identity to a political struggle. I said it to say, actually, you're not black, you're Somali, and then you're Isak, and then you have your sub-clan within that. Because if you tell me that you're Isak, or if you tell me that you're Fanti, or if you tell me that you're Yoruba, it has a whole history and a whole culture that is attached to that, and a whole identity of hundreds of thousands of years of storytelling and life that has lived. And when you tell me that you're black, it doesn't tell me anything about you. It just tells me that you're not white. And the thing is about whiteness is only something that has been created
Whiteness is also a figure of imagination.
As an opposition to blackness, because they weren't white, they were Germans, they were Gauls, they were Romans, or Italians and Greeks. And now it's just like this monolith, this whiteness, right? But actually, without black people, white people don't have an identity. Like, we validate them. And that took me some thinking and getting around to that, which kind of brings me to the question of that I have for you of unity. Why Black Star Line? Why Marcus Garvey? And why Black Star Line Festival?
There are so many misunderstandings between African people of the globe. African Americans, Ghanaians, South Africans, Ethiopians, British, West Indians, and all of these man-made distances behind us are just that. They're created by our oppressors to divide us and conquer us. You know what I'm saying? And something I often hear is that Black Americans will say, oh, well, I'm not African. Africans don't accept us, or Africans will say, why are black people so angry? You know what I mean? And, there's just a lot of like ideological divides that are just created in order to keep us separate, because when we are unified, it's dangerous for the power structure. It was necessary to put people of different clans and nations working together in a field so that they couldn't properly communicate to overthrow their enslavers.
Right.
I mean, you look at Jamaica, when you had times when a bunch of Akans came to the same place, then you got people like Cujo and the Maroons that got away immediately.
Right. It's like, we can organize in our own language and we're gonna kill these people and leave.
They organized quickly,
right,
you know what I'm saying, and maintain their freedom to this day. So for us to be separated has been, one of the most effective tools of white supremacy, and for us to hate our own gods, for us to discard our own names. Modern day is just a blip in the song of human history. The last 500 years can't define the
Hundreds
entirety
of
of
years
our
of-
existence
right.
as a people,
Right.
as a nation of people, as African people, being disconnected from our source for 500 years. That doesn't change the reality of who we are. And in this festival, the idea is through art and culture to build a bridge that can help to reunite the broken bonds of the diaspora through the transatlantic slave trade. And I think that when we can recognize ourselves as being of one soil, and we can come back to that soil, and we can plant in that soil, and we can grow from that ground. The potential is endless because this is the soil from which we come. You know what I mean? It's like we're all divided and disconnected, trying to do things in places that we have been put
scattered to
without our, against our will. Not to say that we don't have an entitlement to what we've built in those places.
Right.
But it will never be our origin. It'll never be our real origin.
Right.
It's ancillary, yes, but as African people, it's like we have to come to the continent. You know what I mean? We have to collaborate between Africans in America and you in the Caribbean and in England and in Nigeria and in Ghana and South Africa and in Ethiopia, because we've been treated as one. We're the only ones that don't treat each other as one.
Right.
It's like if all 6 of us in this party right now go to China, and we get off the plane,
nobody's like, Negroes.
Yeah, nobody's gonna say, "Oh, he's the Jamaican."
Yeah.
There's Solange, he's Ghanaian.
Yeah.
There's Vic, he's American. They're gonna be like Africans.
Right.
Send them to the left.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's like we're the only ones that don't treat all of us as one thing. You go anywhere on this planet now, you might open your mouth and they hear your American accent and they hear your British accent and they start to treat you differently. But on face value, we as black people are the only ones that don't treat ourselves as one. Everybody else looks at us and they say, yeah, y'all ass all Negroes.
Right. So that was like, your inspiration for that kind of unity, Kwame Nkrumah, Africa Must Unite, Marcus Garvey,
Africa Must Unite,
Africans
Marcus
at home
Garvey,
and abroad.
Africa for the Africans. And in the music game, just recognizing that it's not sustainable, that we've been performing in Europe 10 times over before we perform once in Africa.
Anywhere in Africa.
Anywhere.
How you doing a world tour and leave out the whole of Africa?
That's what I'm saying. And it's like coming into the music industry, I performed in not just London but Leeds and Liverpool, and not just Berlin but Dusseldorf, not just Amsterdam but Oslo.
Right, but if it's Nigeria, it's Lagos. If it's Nigeria.
But it wasn't even Nigeria. It was literally all those things and many more, and the entire continent of Australia, or country of Australia, and New Zealand, and Tokyo, and South Korea.
And everywhere but here.
Everywhere on the planet, pretty much. I didn't go to Russia yet, what I mean? But like pretty much every corner of the planet I performed in, and we all perform in before we go perform in Ghana once, or Lagos once, or even South Africa. South Africa gets the most performances, but it's a fraction of the amount of time that you'll spend in Europe. You know what I mean? And in recognition of that, being here, and I met a kid at a store who had a Save Money tattoo on his arm. And I was just like, man, this is so dope, and I just started to think, I can't believe that I'm not here performing, you know what I mean? I can't believe that I've been doing this for this long, and I'm actually from here, and even me, I'm just going where the booking agent says to go.
Right.
And here are these people that have been living with this music and loving to this music and growing from this music, learning with me, and all of my contemporaries, and none of us have a conversation, a communication with them. None of us perform for them, market to them, you know what I mean? Like, do special limited edition items,
clothing line,
it doesn't make sense. It's like it's both a missed opportunity, and also just like an unsustainable relationship. I feel like as as a musician, you and your listeners are a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what do you do in a relationship? You communicate.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you see each other.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe not all the time,
Mm-hmm.
but periodically.
Mm-hmm.
And the relationship between black artists of the globe and
Mm-hmm.
their fans in Africa is, it's not a sustainable relationship, because it's
Mm-hmm.
like we're not properly being put in position to cultivate the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so I'm like, man, let's just figure out a way to do it, you know? And I didn't know how it would happen, but I just started to dream of it happening and dream of a situation, a vessel that could be bringing black artists to come perform in Africa. It wasn't really much deeper than that. I mean, I have wanted to be providing them with a cultural experience as well.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing that it was going to have to be favors called, because the conversions and, you know, there are many barriers that, you know,
course.
have been the reasons
Like
why
Malcolm
it hasn't
said,
happened.
for most Africans or black people, Africa's too far away.
Right.
But I think in closing, because, you know, I'm proud of you, I'm proud that you're here doing this and you're uniting the diaspora and being useful rather than just coming here and turning up, which is what a lot of people do. And I'm not saying don't come here and turn up, because people here in Ghana are having fun. They're having the most fun in their life. They ain't got racism to deal with. And the other morning, we was out until 8 a.m., 7 a.m. Like, we be turning up, right? But at the same time as that, like, let's not turn Ghana into the next Ibiza or the next Cancun on spring break. And I think, you know, for people of the diaspora, but particularly for what is called African Americans or Black Americans, if you have decided that you're Cherokee or you're Chickasaw or, you know, you're a First Nations person there, then I want to see you learning the language. You know, I want to see you teaching me about that culture, not just I am not white, but actually what is your culture, what is your history. And even if you are from North America, you've decided that you're from North America, even if you look Nigerian or you look Ghanaian, please start working on trade agreements and building businesses and building relationships with people around the world that look just like you, because as Vic was saying earlier, we don't get treated differently by the people who are stealing from our lands and have created this colonialism. We all get treated like we are a monolith. So there's a proverb, and the proverb goes like this: two men in a burning building do not have time to stop to argue. And so we've been arguing, we've been fighting, we've been fussing, and I think now is the times, like all of these trials and tribulations that we've been having will be able to be solved if we start working together, living together, and building together. And that's what Black Star Line Festival is about. That's why we're doing the conference. Shout out to REVOLT, who are helping us to platform this so this message gets out. And also shout out to Freedom, who's provided this nice space so that we can relax, and actually he's been looking after us the whole time that we've been here. And shout out to all my brothers and sisters all around the world, because you are not black. You are a conscious being, and black is just a political identity. And I think that now we start to feel each other and have empathy for each other more brings us together than divides us. I have been here with this amazing brother, Vic Mensa, and we are about to take part in the Black Star Line conference and the Black Star Line concert in tribute to our amazing ancestors like Kwame Nkrumah, Marcus Garvey, and yeah, we out. Peace.